welcome to episode 5 of the Poker Face podcast. Time of the monkey.
That is a very pervy guy.
It's Pervy Pete.
Explains it.
Steer clear of his entire gang, Chlamydia Cal and Gonorrhea Greg. They're creeps.
Well, at least truth in advertising, huh?
Actually, I think it's Greg that has chlamydia.
Aha.
Good evening, Ian.
Good
Go
evening.
on then, go on.
I'm saying nothing,
Okay.
Gerry. I think the listeners will understand exactly what we're thinking.
Listen, we're all young, wild youth, recklessness.
Oats, etc.
That's it. If you can get out unscathed with a few antibiotics or what have you, you're doing well, I would say.
Moving forward, this was a fun episode.
I think it's my favourite so far. It was hilarious in points, and Pervy Pete, I think, was a special favourite of mine.
He's a master of comic timing.
It was brilliant. I would say, however, that I can understand that the show may have veered into slightly unpalatable waters. There'll be a certain type of audience who grew up through the 70s and 80s and 90s, watching the Columbo and Rockford Files and all the other shows that this is inspired by.
Tea time specials,
who may not appreciate some of the more vulgar aspects of it. I personally loved it and I thought it was hilarious, but yeah, you may well be alienating some of that audience.
Yeah, I think there's a definitely is a different sensibility to this show than Columbo. There are sort of obviously traceable elements and aspects of it that are familiar, but it's not a Columbo reboot or a follow-up or anything like that. So if you're expecting that, then you're going to be in for a bit of a shock.
And I think that's quite right, and that's the way it should be done. They should not just be trying to replicate the style and the essence of those shows. It should just be inspired by it.
And borrow from it occasionally. But yeah, I think the show has to establish its own personality.
And it does, yeah.
And it certainly does.
I think the needle has slightly ticked in this show in terms of, whereas these other shows were meant to be based 100% in reality.
Yep.
There's a slight surreal element to it here. I mean, even the fact that the gift that Charlie has, it's not supernatural, but it's not quite 100% real life. And some of the some of the sort of set pieces, the characters themselves are obviously caricatures, which I think is brilliant.
It's very mild exaggeration, but put in a familiar environment, which is comedic in itself.
Yes.
I say that with a really boring voice and no emotion, but yeah, it's
No,
good.
but I think that's it. Coming to it thinking this will just be a murder mystery. It's not. It's black humour. It's satire. It's all those other things, but not so much that it becomes science fiction or just fiction.
Or even Black Mirror type.
Yeah.
It's not quite that sort of thing.
Just a nod, just a touch, which works brilliantly. And
slight embellishments here and there.
Yeah, and it allows it to explore other avenues and plots and twists and characters that you wouldn't, find in a normal show. Although I would say I would love to have seen Columbo use the C word.
Well, that would have been interesting. Might have lost a couple of viewers.
Oh, for sure. Before we start, we didn't do it last week, but some omissions.
Well, that's because they've probably got nothing wrong the week before, right?
No, it's just omissions on our part, my part. But yeah, we didn't mention that. So Deuteronomy last week was a driver who listened to audiobooks.
Yes, and was also the roadie.
Yeah, but we had Marge as well the previous week. She was an audiobook fan as a driver. Just a little connection there.
An ongoing theme.
Maybe.
Any other errors and omissions apart from missing out errors and omissions?
No, I just thought I'd mention it.
Okay. Should we talk about social media before we get into summaries and whatnot?
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone knows by now, but in case you've forgotten, you can get hold of us on social media at Columbo Podcast on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Threads, anywhere else. All the other shows still have their own accounts. We'll still respond to those, but this is where we're talking about the Poker Face podcast. And if you go to columbopodcast.com, that is where you will find show notes. The podcast is available at all of your favourite podcast providers, but also on YouTube at Columbo Podcast Productions, and we encourage you to listen there if you choose to do so. Reviews are welcomed wherever you can leave them, particularly on Apple Podcasts, because that affects the visibility of the show, and we thank all of you who have taken the time to leave reviews in the past or recently.
Or in the future.
We thank you in advance.
Wonderful. Do you have a summary for us this week?
I do.
Crack on.
In Time of the Monkey, we meet Joyce and Irene, a pair of residents at a retirement village who were jailed for a long time when they were younger after getting involved with a militant protest group. When the man who led their group moves into the village, the ladies make a shocking discovery about their past and decide to kill their former lover. The death is made to appear natural, but Charlie, now working at the facility, is suspicious. After learning about the true nature of her friend's past crimes, Charlie suspects they may have killed the new arrival. But can she unravel their carefully prepared plan? Or will the women get away with their act of revenge?
Nice one, Ian. Thank you. Before we begin, I think that this is another episode that does have similarities to Columbo in the sense that the murder felt like it, that type of it's devious, it's well thought out, well planned, cunning, using a bit of technology, which Columbo often did.
Yeah. And a bit like last week, they used the device of the time shift more directly in this episode than they did in the first three.
Yeah. Where do we begin?
We open with a bit of music and a bedroom. We see a dead person being zipped into a body bag and wheeled out past some elderly people in a communal area.
Yeah, there's no messing about this week. It's straight into the old body bag zip, which has a recurring theme in this episode, or a recurring scene, I should say.
It is.
Did you enjoy the score? It was very prominent.
It was catchy, wasn't it?
Yeah. Do you want some trivia about that just now?
Yeah, fire away.
Okay, so this was Jackie Shane singing this soulful tune. Interestingly, she was considered a pioneer, perhaps the first transgender performer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Before we leave Columbo behind for this week, it probably segues into certainly some thoughts that are becoming obvious. So this show, we're always keen to praise and look at the positives in Columbo.
Yep.
But this show is doing things differently, and it's not necessarily a criticism of shows of the past. It's just they were off their time, but we do have a very strong female lead in the show, and the writers and directors. It's not just middle-aged white males, which predominantly was the case back in the 70s, and that's perhaps because there was the pool of writers. That's what they existed as. There wasn't necessarily the options
or the opportunities.
Yeah. It's good to see that, and in a lot of cases here, their CVs aren't jam-packed, so it's obviously people been given opportunities that perhaps would have been reserved in the past for the boys' club.
And I think when you can tap into a diverse range of perspectives, it gives you more authenticity in the storytelling.
Yes, I think this sort of the progressive, production of this show is something worth noting. And again, it's not a criticism of Columbo because it was off its time.
I think it's reflected in these stories. So I think they're very inclusive in their own ways. They're not always done from one perspective, and I think that's a nice element of the series.
Indeed. Okay, back to the body bag.
Well, we move outside with it and we see a sign which tells us this is Mossy Park's retirement village.
Yeah, so at first I thought it was like just an old folks' home, which we don't really have retirement villages in the UK. You've got a home, basically a block of, an apartment.
A single building.
It's
more
like a hospital, really.
Yeah, that sort of thing. But I think we're starting more and more to see retirement villages.
Are we?
Yeah, I think there's one not too far from where we are.
Okay. Fortunately, I've not really had to investigate that too much just now, but yeah, I quite like the idea of it. I can see myself in a...
Shutting your parents off, I was going to say.
No, myself, yeah.
Okay.
Just chilling out, playing a bit of backgammon through the day, popping in to see the neighbour.
It always makes me think of the Peter Kay advert for John Smith back in the 90s when he tells his mum that he's had a word and they'll take her, and she says, I'm only 43.
Yeah.
Anyhow, yes, we come back into one of the flats, which is across the road from where this body's been removed, and in there we find two older women.
A flat? It's a house, is it not?
An apartment,
a bungalow.
whatever you want to call it, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so anyway, as you mentioned, the body's wheeled out, and as it does, we sort of pan across the multiple residents passing their time with games and meeting relatives and friends, and it looks like it looks like a decent place to spend your final years.
Sure, why not? A bit like the place in Richard Osman's novels.
I've not read that yet, but I can
wouldn't
imagine. Yeah, I've heard mixed reviews. It's very popular, mind you, but yeah. And the overview, as you say, continues. We see there are people outside in the grass doing exercises, and we enter.
Yeah, an apartment or a single or
A bungalow,
self-contained living area.
Yeah, to find feisty.
I made a bit of a meal of that. You know what I mean?
Two feisty friends arguing over what and what is not a nut, while one of them performs, I think it's tricep dips.
Yeah, they're arguing good-naturedly, and we then see one of them, who's called Joyce, pushing the other, Irene, in her wheelchair.
We do, but you've missed. You've ignored one of the most shocking parts of this episode.
Have I skipped over something?
Yeah,
shocking?
you certainly
Is it the
have.
language?
Yeah, the language. Yeah, well, I think we get to see the nature of their relationship, because Irene talks about Joyce's cunt heart, and I think that it's still to this day it's probably one of the last sort of taboo words you would have in American TV. I'm led to believe that the use of that word in the States is still not as casually.
Yeah, it's one of those debates you see online all the time, because in Scotland it's a term of endearment.
I've probably called you out about 4 times already in the last day. Yeah. And it has just dropped into conversation. Yeah, I mean, not polite conversation, but you would refer to your friends like, come here,
There's something subversive as well about seeing older people using language that people maybe think is reserved to younger folk.
Without a doubt. And I'm saying this is showing the character. It's again with that one word.
Yeah, it tells you a lot. And we talked about this last week as well. Like there was small interactions that give you a lot of information.
Very economical use of the script.
Anyhow, yes, as I said, we go on to see them. One's in a wheelchair. She's called Irene. The other is pushing her, Joyce.
Before they do get out, we see that Joyce is cooking something in a pressure cooker.
Pressure cooker, yes.
Yeah.
We'll get back to that.
And the name on it, is it not Elaine? So she must have died.
Oh, it's been swiped in some way, yeah.
Yeah, I think more likely she just died and people would take it.
Inherited it, yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you leave prison, here you can have my collection of pornography. I'm guessing.
Perhaps. Anyhow, once they get out of this living apartment, they end up in this communal area that we saw earlier on.
I'm going to refer to that as the hub.
Okay. And they want to watch the television, but they are blocked from doing so by a group of 3 women who have taken control of the remote and have the majority vote.
They're known as the Fletchers, obviously a nod to JB.
Indeed. And
what they're watching?
It's a Norwegian true crime series.
Now, they also mentioned that they'd finished watching the Quaintishire murders, and I think this is a great, again, it's sort of cliche of this, the Scandinavian the shows that are, I mean, is Norway actually part of Scandinavia? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Is it? That's cool.
Yeah, we're good.
Some of them aren't. Finland isn't, is it?
No,
but you probably still refer to it as
Scandi Noir, however it is, yeah.
And then the Quaintishire, which is sort of the Agatha Christie or the Midsummer Murder type.
Yeah, English Village. Well.
Yeah, cozy crime, cozy murder.
Yeah. Irene shouts some abuse at them. I think Joyce asks, "Who cares who's been killed in Norway?"
She says the blonde bitch did it or something.
They say that in the way.
No, it says she calls them bitches and says the blonde did it.
Yes, that's right. But they move on and bump into a member of staff who we come to learn is Billy.
We also see that all residents wear a heart rate monitor,
a Fitbit type thing, yeah.
Yeah, on their wrist. And Billy asks if Irene has charged hers.
He calls it a heart cuff.
Yes, and he gets what we come to see is a typical non-verbal response from her.
Indeed, she doesn't want to be tracked, and he tells her it's not a GPS device, but she's not interested.
I also love the fact that she went straight for, I don't want you knowing when I'm doing a poop so that you can jerk off.
That's obviously what we'd be doing, yeah.
But I mean, despite him protesting that it's only for, it's not a GPS, it's just for the heart rate monitors, she says she won't be chipped like a dog, and Joyce barks and laughs as they move past him to, I think it's the rec room, the games room.
Yeah, a little later on we see them playing Mahjong together when they're approached by another resident of the facility. Yeah,
she is like the mother hen, the sort of coordinator, the self-appointed leader of the inmates.
Yes, and she wants to see if they're interested in signing up for the trip to the zoo.
And their sardonic attitude extends to her as they point out that they are not toddlers. They've seen emus before. They don't need to go to the zoo.
Yeah. She tells them that they don't have a positive enough attitude, and if they don't change it, she's going to report their illegal drug plants to the administration.
But this threat doesn't bother them, because Joyce refers to it as, no, it's life-saving medicine. It's a technicality.
And I think Betty's onto them, at least to a certain extent.
Well, this further angers her. And I think she's clearly painted here as a bit of racist, fundamentalist Christian type.
Is she?
Yeah, she talks about their weird sort of Chinese games as if it's, this, and then she talks about it as a Satanist game or a game about witchcraft. So she's clearly religious and doesn't like foreigner type games.
Okay. She leaves, and at this point, Irene notices something going on over at the sort of reception desk.
Yeah, so their laughter at Betty soon turns to shock when Irene taps Joyce on the arm and they turn around to stare at a new male member being shown around and told about the heart cuff system.
Is that a play on words you've just done there?
What was that?
When you said a new male member, given what we'll come to later on.
I wish I'd thought of that. I wish I'd meant it. I quite like the shot here. It's a quick sort of zoom into their faces showing the...
Yeah, they're clearly surprised. Yeah.
Very.
We then cut ahead, don't know how far, and this could be important later on, to the apartment where they are alone and agree that their only choice is to kill this man.
Kill this mother effer.
Indeed.
Uh-huh. Now, are we assuming they live together, I think, here in this place?
I think so, yeah. I don't think it's... Yeah.
I wonder if they live in this, share the same bed, bearing in mind what we come to learn later on.
Who knows? That's their preference or their choice.
Of course it's their choice, they're not being forced to.
Well, you don't know, maybe they've got separate rooms and they just live. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Next day, we see Joyce doing a trade.
Well, I think this is a sort of a montage scene here, isn't it? Yeah, she is bribing the gardener with weed for some sodium nitrate, which she mixes into a poison. Meanwhile, we see Irene add her name and Joyce's to the list for attending the zoo. I was quite proud of myself here as well. I zoomed in on their names.
Okay.
We'll get to that in the trivia.
Okay.
But I thought maybe it would be an Easter egg, but they do actually mention it later in the
That happens
episode.
quite a lot. Every time I think I've spotted something, it gets mentioned a wee bit later on.
I won't look as smart now.
Yeah. Anyhow, Irene at this point wheels her wheelchair into a medical trolley or a trolley with supplies.
Billy's trolley, I think.
She pinches some stuff when he's distracted.
Yeah, it's a syringe while insulting him with various racing driver names.
Okay.
Dario Franchetti.
Mario Andretti, I think she says. Yeah.
Yeah.
A wee bit later on, back in this communal area, the hub as you call it.
Well, they're in the games room, or the rec room with a TV and they're playing their stuff, yeah.
It's all open plan. But they make a big show of Irene needing to go to the toilet. They speak a bit louder than they need to so that everybody knows this is what's happening.
This is them creating their alibi.
Yes. Joyce wheels her to the door and waits outside.
Come on, before what does she cry out that she needs?
She needs the toilet.
No, she doesn't say that.
Oh, that's what she says.
No, she doesn't. She says she needs to go to the shitter again.
Okay. But yes, it's made unambiguous that Irene is going to the toilet, and that's where she's going to be for the next period of time.
Yeah, 10, 15 minutes. So what she does here is she uses her incredible upper body strength that we've seen her working out on in the opening.
We did, so they have
opening scene.
Given us an insight into this previously.
Yeah, I mean, it's believable. I think if you spent the vast majority of your life without the use of your legs, your upper body would be in tip-top condition.
And your lower body wouldn't weigh very much because you're not able to do any work on that.
Yeah.
Anyhow, as you say, she uses her upper body strength to leverage herself out of the bathroom window and up a trellis.
Yeah, and I love the fact that she was camouflaged.
Yes, there was a perfect dress and the gardener doesn't spot her.
Yeah. All the while, Betty is agitated and yelling for her to hurry up as the bus to the zoo is waiting and Joyce has to make the excuse that she's got diarrhea.
Meanwhile, Irene makes her way into one of the rooms.
No, it's the victim's room. And after an amusing shot of her rising up the wall, she gets inside and takes a tumble.
Kind of flops her way
Yeah.
into the room and hauls herself up onto the bed beside this new guy that we saw moving in.
He is napping and comes around from sleep just in time to recognise her and understand what's about to happen.
She tells him that she's glad he came back before injecting him with the poison that we saw Joyce created.
She does, but before that, she takes off his heart rate monitor.
Does she replace it with another one?
Yes. Yes.
She puts a cuff back on him after
That's
injecting
hers.
him. Okay.
Yeah.
As we come to learn. And then she leaves the way that she came.
Yeah, as ungracefully as she entered, which was funny. Back in the rec room, Betty has finally had enough and bursts into the toilet, only to find an indignant Irene finishing up and asking her if she wants to wipe the crevices off her crevices.
Yes, she's always ready with a caustic comment. She leaves with Joyce and disposes of the murder syringe in a sharp spin as they go.
So we're now at the zoo. The second part of the plan and alibi is then hilariously put into action when Irene gets Joyce to use a stun gun. So where did she get a stun gun from?
Don't know. Maybe it's just hers.
See, I would have
Because they have it in where they're staying later on.
Yes, I would have liked a line about that, just a mention of how if any, mother effer tries to mess with her, she's got this.
Sort of taser type thing, yeah.
It's a little bit like is it Die Hard 2 in the plane? The old woman?
Yes.
That type of thing.
Yeah, it's exactly the same sort of
Yeah.
place. So, at this point, she's, as you say, electrocuted, but we see back at the village the wristband giving a reading of cardiac arrest.
Because she's wearing the victim's wristband at this point.
Yes.
Now, the others are watching the monkey show. It's not a monkey, is it? What is it?
It's an orangutan.
Orangutan, whatever. The monkey, right? So the others are watching. This is what the big part of the trip.
Yeah, the main attraction. They were summoned over the tannoy to come and watch this, but Joyce and Irene were not interested.
And I suppose it's important as well. One of the tricks this monkey can do is to tap out the exact time.
Yeah, that's pretty much the only trick we see the monkey do.
Yeah.
It's not even a monkey.
Yeah, monkey, chimp, whatever.
It's not. Anyway, the staff at the retirement village rush to the victim's bedside and find him deceased.
Yeah. Now, she also should say that after receiving the stun, Irene takes off the band from her arm.
The medical staff tried to resuscitate,
but to no avail. And so, for the second time in 10 minutes, we get the body bag zip up.
Indeed. And he's being wheeled out as the group returns from the zoo.
Yeah, Irene and Joyce return as a medic tells Betty that the new guy has had a heart attack.
Yeah, I think we see Billy put his, this is Ben, I think he's called, his wristband on a charger.
Yeah, the final piece of the plan is enacted when Joyce swaps over Ben Holmes, because we see his name on his box of belongings, the wristband, so that puts his back and takes
Her own one.
in return.
And I think there's kind of a fist bump at this point between Joyce and Irene.
Was there?
They think they've got away with it now.
The perfect crime. I'm going to make another Columbo reference here.
Okay.
This reminded me of How to Dial a Murder.
Okay.
I believe that when the murder was happening, he was doing it over the phone. He was instructing the dogs.
Yeah.
Rosebud. And I think he was having a medical at the time.
Okay.
And his heart rate, I think it went up. And I think that's a clue for Columbo.
There's a couple of Columbos where there are good alibi stories
Yeah.
along these lines where they couldn't possibly have been there.
I really liked this, the whole plot to this. I thought it was quite smart.
Now, we now see Charlie. I didn't hear our music. Did they play our music? I got an ad break right ahead of it.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't think we did hear it. That's the first, I think.
Yeah.
Well, we're at the hub pre-murder.
Yes, and she's hoovering while the three Fletchers are watching this Norwegian.
Well, I thought that was a nice
crime
shot
drama.
as well, because you see in the drama a body bag being put in the back of an ambulance and you think it must be Ben, but it's not. It pulls out and it's
on
the
the telly,
Fletchers on the TV, yeah.
Charlie's then approached by Joe Biden, who tells her not to worry. These guys are just into murder.
Yeah. And he also, she's vacuuming.
Yeah.
And the Fletchers have, given her, told her to shush. And then Pete admits that he would never tell a woman to stop sucking.
Charlie gives him a WTF at this point.
She's like, oh, what, you creepy old guy. Before Betty shoos him away and lets him know who he is, and that's
We heard that at the top of the show. He's Pervy Pete.
Yes. She then tells Charlie to stick with her, as she knows everyone there, and after quipping that she hopes that she's not botulism Betty, they shake hands and she starts boring her about the joys of an instant pot, while Charlie, I think she fishes some dentures from a bin.
As they're chatting, Betty asks Joyce and Irene to turn down music that they've just put on.
Yeah, there's some loud funk coming from their ghetto blaster.
They flip her off, and she tells Charlie that they are felons and junkies.
Which causes Charlie to describe the place as a real den of iniquity, with a smile on her face, obviously.
Yeah, I think she's doesn't take it quite as seriously as Betty would expect her to.
No, Betty doesn't seem to appreciate her relaxed attitude, and so orders her to stay away from them.
Of course, Charlie's not going to respond to that in the desired way, so the next time we see her, she is with Joyce and Irene.
They're outside, the three of them, stoned and playing shuffleboard.
Or Joyce at least, talks to Charlie about rage therapy.
Yeah, she says she's very tense and demonstrates what this rage therapy is. And it's quite a nice, again, this is called back later.
It is. We see a neighbour reacting to this scream as if I've heard this a million times.
Charlie then declines to reach deep into her labia, preferring to stay unbottled.
Joyce explains to Charlie that when they were in prison, which they genuinely were, they were political prisoners.
Yes, and we retire to the house where the conversation continues as Charlie looks at an old picture of the pair and is surprised at the young and innocent-looking Irene.
Whoa, Irene.
Yeah, that's right.
Very straight edge. I mean, not at all what I was expecting.
Yeah, I was on the straight and narrow before I met my guardian devil.
What?
Yep, she was shouting down some co-eds on the quad, and I heard what she was saying, and my brain opened up. World didn't make sense before that, and then it did.
Yeah, it's adorable.
She brought me into the group, changed my life. Introduced me to Gabriel.
Oh la la. Who's this Gabriel? Who's Gabriel?
Gabriel started the group. He recruited me and he trained us, inspired us. He was our guiding light.
I see what's happening here. I'm getting a real magnetic vibe, like a cult leader with pretty eyes.
Yeah, you look like one of those white guys you see in the picture frames that you buy from Target.
Excuse me.
Don't
Irene,
no
you're
excuse
nuts.
you.
Excuse me. Gabriel was hot.
Okay, I'm gonna split the diff. I'm gonna picture my high school French teacher.
Yeah. One thing for sure, though.
Dick like a fire hydrant.
Oh, good for Gabriel. Everyone enjoys that. Yes, well done, Gabriel.
Gabriel was more than that. You know, he knew that we could make the world a better place if we hold the assholes to account. You feel me?
I feel you.
That was Gabriel.
I feel you. I am picking up what you're putting down, and I gotta say, you two are the coolest motherfuckers I have met in a very long time. Seriously, I mean, sorry to curse, but it's necessary.
Cool.
So what happened after that? What happened after he recruited you?
We went to work.
I have to say that in that scene, the chemistry between the three actors was fantastic, and it really looked, sort of Charlie sitting there, maybe her feet tucked up and listening, and you really believe that she thinks these two are brilliant. And
yeah, she's loving the story.
Yeah.
She's obviously quite engaged with it. We start to see flashbacks now of young Irene and Joyce painting some banners and learning that a band called the Droopy Hues put their group photo on their album cover because they were maybe quite notorious at that point.
Yeah. What was the banner?
I can't remember. What did it say?
Like Dick Nixon.
Oh, right, yes. So this thing with the Droopy Hues, is that a reference to anything? Is that trivia?
Don't think so.
There's no bands put any cult groups on their record covers now. Someone must have put the Manson family on their album cover.
Oh, there's hundreds of Manson t-shirts and memes.
I wonder if it's maybe that reference.
Could be.
We see this Gabriel fellow. He's getting into both Joyce and Irene simultaneously.
Yeah, we see that they both enjoyed a fire hydrant at the same time. And then we go back to the games room, the rec room.
Billy joins them just as Joyce is mocking Charlie's shock at this story of a threesome.
To remind Irene to charge her heart cuff. Of course, they insult him and he points out to Charlie that she doesn't actually live there. She's still hanging around.
He then has some questions about the cardigan that she's wearing.
This is great. I think Charlie says that she got it from Lost and Found.
Yeah, but that's not Lost, really, is it?
No, and she's untroubled when told that it was Elaine's ass. So Elaine was
who was on the pressure cooker.
Yes, who died of an aneurysm in the actual cardigan. But what did Charlie say?
She says it smells like a life well lived, which leads Billy to walk off noting that she's gone full cocoon.
Yeah. Now I'm going to ask you, I'm not expecting an affirmative here, but have you seen Cocoon?
I have seen Cocoon, but a long time ago.
Right, okay. Good movie.
Yeah. Billy leaves and Charlie asks Irene and Joyce to resume their story. She wants to know what went wrong.
So she explains that they were planning their most direct action, and we see photos of their bourgeois pig shit list.
Bougie. Yes. We get this flashback to their sort of warehousey area.
Yeah, and I like this as well because we find out more, or the reality of it later on, but at the moment they're packing flowers. It looks all very hippie and peaceful. And
Gabriel leaves and we hear a gunshot from outside.
There is a police or an FBI raid where Irene gets shot bravely trying to get to Gabriel, who's outside.
Yeah, it's made out that the police, or whoever it is, come in, guns blazing.
Yeah, on these innocent, flower-loving
hippies.
Protesters, yeah.
Irene reflects that they took everything from them.
Yeah, we're back at the house now. It's not the flashback anymore, and all three are fighting or are actually crying at this story. So you can see Charlie's really invested in these guys and what they went through.
Joyce and Irene assumed that Gabriel was killed, but they never found out for sure.
And the only hope that he didn't suffer.
Charlie admires their story and thinks it's great that they've managed to learn to forgive and forget. But
no, this is the first, I suppose, isn't it? The first indication of their, well, not for us, but from Charlie's point of view, perhaps.
Yeah, that they're not all they seem to be.
Not quite as
or they're more than they seem to be.
Yeah, because Irene with conviction states that no, they never forgive, and I think we see Charlie assess this and realise that they mean it.
Yeah. We then get a quick exterior shot before we come back to the scene that we saw before of Ben.
At reception,
yes.
And this time we see there's a younger man with him. As Billy describes the heart cuff system, and Ben looks around and at this point spots Irene and Joyce, which causes him to return their stare, and I think he looks very concerned.
He looks something anyway.
Yeah, it's not joy.
It's kind of sadness.
I think it's more than that. I think it's a bit of fear.
I'm not sure. We find out that he's chosen to be here, so.
Okay, nervousness then.
Yes, certainly concern, hesitation, regret maybe.
Well, it could be fear as well, because he doesn't know
it could be
how
they're going to take
what he's got to tell them. In fact, it would be fear, wouldn't it, really?
To some extent.
You can't expect him to take it well.
Yeah. We skip ahead up to his room where his nephew is dropping him off and Charlie's there.
Yeah, she's been asked to help up with the bags and witnesses an awkward embrace from the younger man who very specifically tells her that he is his nephew as he leaves, which she obviously knows is a lie.
Yes. She asks Ben where he's from, but he tells her nowhere and that he expects no visitors.
Yeah, he also declines to have the window closed, which is obviously a clue later on.
Yeah. She leaves at this point, obviously unable to get through to him.
I think she feels quite sorry for him.
Yeah.
Back in their house, later that night.
Joyce and Irene's house.
Yes. With an appropriately melancholic score playing, we see the two women waiting expectantly and nervously in the dark before the shadow of Ben arrives at the door, which is a really nice shot, that.
Yes, Joyce greets him and it turns out he's not Ben after all.
Exactly.
This is like in Star Wars.
Okay. Yeah, it's a sort of one of these cry laughs, very emotional. They cuddle and sit at the table all holding hands together. They're both stunned and delighted. You can hardly take in the fact that it's Gabriel.
Yes.
Who's not dead and sitting in front of them.
They embrace and Joyce and Irene are genuinely excited and pleased to see him.
But you can tell he's distressed and not in the same joyous spirit as his old friends and lovers.
He tells them that he's thought about this moment for years and they explain that they believed him to be dead or they would have looked for him.
But the reason for his obvious dread is soon revealed.
Yes, they say they're glad that he got away, but he can't keep that impression going because that's not the case.
Yeah, a shout out to the actor here. I thought that it was sort of quite minimal acting, but he expressed an awful lot. You could really sense what he was thinking and the turmoil that he must have been going through.
And it's clear to Joyce and Irene as well, who realise what happened. And we get a flashback.
Yes, so it's sort of another angle of what we saw earlier. He, in fact, gave them up. He opened the door to the cops, who fired a shot into the air. So he wasn't shot himself.
No. He got into a van. And
an FBI or a cop van. And again, even in that, we can see that he's not happy with what he's doing. He's very concerned and worried, and he obviously knows that if what he's done is it's going to have serious consequences on his friends.
Yeah, these people that he supposedly cares about, yeah.
Yeah, so at this point, he's obviously a rat. You're meant to think he is definitely 100% the bad guy here. They've stormed in there and shot a couple of innocent hippies.
Yes.
Or at least
What a horrible man.
Yeah. Eventually, he manages to speak more than a few words, and he tries to defend his actions.
I didn't have a choice. Things had gotten out of hand, and I couldn't stop them, not on my own. I know I did the right thing, but it kills me that I had hurt the ones I loved.
It kills you. Man, we lost decades of our lives.
I lost my goddamn legs.
I know. I'm sorry. That's why I'm here. I have this dream where I see the two of you in a crowd, and I follow you for miles and miles, and till my feet bleed. I try to explain myself, but you never turn around. In 50 years, you never turn around. And I realized that the dream would never change until I told you the truth. Can you please forgive me?
So from this, we know that he's chosen to find them, or he's looked them up. And
Yeah, I've got a question. I've got a sort of issue about that. Maybe we can speak about it a bit later on.
okay. It seems he's got a guilty conscience that he wants to ease for his own benefit.
Yeah, now at this point, I'm thinking that this will be the type of episode where Charlie finds a way not to punish the killer.
Yeah, because it's been done for a good reason.
Yeah, for a moral, ethical, you think, okay, that's right. And that's what I thought was going to happen. Anyway, after a long pause, and while trying to hold back their rage, Joyce tells them that, yeah, they will forgive him, which causes him to break down and sob.
Yes, he then leaves, and we see the moment from earlier on where they resolve to kill him.
Now back in the toilet, pre-zoo.
Yeah, we've skipped in again. It's a scene we've witnessed previously. It's Irene leaving the bathroom having committed the murder, and this time we see Charlie walking past and recognise that Joyce is lying when she says that Irene has diarrhea.
Yeah, I like the calling out BS on shitting.
Yeah. We skip ahead to the zoo itself, and Charlie has been on Etsy and picked up a Droopy Hughes t-shirt, which is now a bit awkward.
Yeah, very, very much so, yeah. And asked for Gabriel to be pointed out.
Yes, and she is able to recognise them from their description once she gets the pointer.
Yeah, apparently even from an old photograph printed onto a t-shirt, you can still make out his hydrant.
That seems unlikely.
Well, yeah, it depends how.
That could just be a crease.
Could be. They then lie about having an allergy to monkey dander as the reason not to join her and the others at the monkey show.
Yeah, Charlie knows they're lying, but she assumes they're just going off to get high.
Yeah. At the show, Charlie is impressed with Melanie.
Overly impressed.
Yeah, as are the others. And she looks around to see if Irene and Joyce are there because, you know, they're missing out on something fantastic.
Yeah. Back at the retirement village, Betty calls Joyce and Irene deviants, and Charlie finds it from the orderly with the body bag that it's Ben who's just died and is being wheeled out.
This must be, a week later? Sometime it's a funeral service. It's not the next day.
Later, anyway.
Yeah. Charlie enters the sparsely attended service. And
did you not enjoy the eulogy?
Oh, can you remind me?
When he says, what was Ben truly like? That's something for each of us to decide for ourselves.
Because
he doesn't know anything about him.
Exactly. And I think that probably has to happen quite a lot of the time. You know, people who...
You must have standard phrases and things, yeah.
Yeah,
a well-loved member of the community.
Generic stuff, yeah.
Respected by all who knew him.
He wasn't a paedophile, was he? Right, okay, I can see that then.
Charlie sits down next to the fake nephew, who she calls out as a fake nephew.
Again, hints of Columbo here. We know that Columbo was that...
Inappropriate funerals,
Yeah.
yes. Very much so, yes. He protests that he is in fact the nephew, but then goes on to admit the truth.
Well, okay, first of all, she says, I don't care, and assumes that he must have been some sort of a sugar daddy for him.
Yes, he's so upset at that suggestion that he, I presume, illegally tells her about the witness protection situation.
He realises that she's a nice person. Yeah. She's there because she felt sorry for him.
That's still no reason to start blurting all this out.
witness protection, in terms of just not opening your mouth, that must be like number one rule. Do not talk about this. Doesn't matter what the situation is. Do not mention anything to anyone. Rule number one of protecting a witness.
Even once they're dead.
And we see later on, but he's terrible at this, isn't he?
Oh, he's not a good agent, no. No. They move forward at the end of the service to the front of the chapel, and there's a photograph of Ben, which Charlie finds familiar.
Yeah, and I think she asks him if he was involved in the mafia.
Yes, before realising who it is. This leads Agent Clark, as we come to learn his name is, to panic, particularly when he then learns that Joyce and Irene are present.
And so the next thing we see, back at the hub.
Yes, a swarm of cop cars showing up at the entrance, and Joyce and Irene looking up from their game before being approached by Agent Clark, who asks them to come with him.
Outside, Betty is delighted to be able to make Clark aware of all the stuff the women get up to, including some sort of sexual zapping at the zoo. I love how it's just, it must be sexual.
Yes, but also a more serious crime. At a recent birthday party for one of the residents, they each took 2 slices of cake. Minimum
2 slices. He can't believe that he got so much information and walks over to Charlie, who is loading laundry into a van, to let her know that it looks like her friends are in the clear.
Okay.
Because Betty was able to identify exactly where they are, pick out where they were at the time of death.
Despite their long list of perceived offences in her book, she is able to alibi them for the actual time of Ben's death.
However, he also has news for Charlie that doesn't go down as well.
Okay, so the heart cuff data pins the time of death, and Joyce and Irene were at the zoo, so they didn't kill Gabriel.
Well, I could have told you that.
Well, normally if someone in witness protection meets the people he, witnessed and then suddenly drops dead.
Wait, are you saying that Ben or Gabriel or whatever, he's the guy that ratted them out?
God, I'm just so dumb. He said he wanted to transfer here. And I said, Mossy Oaks, sounds nice. I did zero research whatsoever.
Oh, yes, no, that is not very thorough, but don't beat yourself up, because guess what? They didn't kill him. I mean, with the zoo and the time, and I know them, these guys are cool as shit, okay? They're not murderers.
Charlie, Joyce, and Irene are not cool as shit. They're domestic terrorists.
All right, Mr. Man.
Do you know what they were planning when they were arrested?
Yeah, I do. They were doing some kind of a big march or something, so that's...
They were going to blow up a meeting of the Model United Nations with bombs they made out of pressure cookers.
Wait, I'm sorry. They were going to blow up the UN?
The Model UN. As in high schoolers, pretending to be the UN for extra credit.
Okay, is that better or worse? Because, I mean, that's not the real UN, right?
So much worse. They were going to kill children with explosives.
Ah. Yikes.
Yeah. Anything comes up.
Yeah, you should keep that. I don't need that.
Maybe they didn't kill Gabriel, but watch your back, Charlie. Those 2 women are extremely dangerous.
That's the second time Charlie's been warned about the 2 of them.
And at this point, he leaves and she notices them watching her.
I think they are suspicious that she's been talking to the feds.
Yeah, maybe she's a rat.
Now, I mentioned earlier, I don't really understand what Ben Gabriel, what his motive was, what he was trying to do. So he wants to finally admit to the pair of them what happened and maybe ask for forgiveness.
Yes.
Why does he have to move in to the same retirement facility as they are to do that? He could have first, because he must know that there's a huge chance that they won't be happy with him. Well, they definitely won't be happy, but how can he even win them over? So why would he not just firstly pick up the phone, or at the very worst, just go and visit them for the day? You don't have to. And then maybe he does want to hang about with them and make peace and spend the rest of his days, but you can find out what their reaction is first and then say, hey, is it okay, guys, if I maybe move in here? Even if he isn't murdered by them, if they find him repulsive to be around, it's not going to be a nice atmosphere if he's got to live out his life with them there.
Well, when he first arrived, he was sad. I'm trying to think of this. So this is before he spoke to them. He doesn't know what they're going to say. He thinks he's got to reveal this secret. They could react positively or negatively, probably negatively. I don't know. Maybe he felt it's the easiest way or the only way to get access to them.
What? It's easier to move in there, finagle your way in rather than pick up the phone or drive. I don't know how far away he lives, but drive or fly or take the train to the place just for a visit.
I don't know how restricted he is as someone in witness protection.
He won't be that restricted.
You think he'd be able just to go wherever he wants?
He's so unrestricted. He's able to move there. He's
move there with the FBI support though. Not independently.
I mean, you can about 30 odd years later. He's not in a prison. He can go for the day somewhere. But you pick up the phone. Is what I'm saying.
Well. Anyway, it's not explained.
No.
He obviously thought this was the best plan.
He's an idiot and he's paid the price for that. Unless it was some sort of... He thought, if I don't, then I'm going to get what I deserve. It's a suicide.
Yeah, maybe. In terms of what Agent Clark said Joyce and Irene were planning to do, obviously he at least believes it, whether it's true or not. He believes it to be true because Charlie doesn't pick it up as a lie. Yeah.
Back at the apartment, the relationship has now taken a sinister turn as the two women sit across from a nervous Charlie and ask her if she's a rat.
They point out that they hate rats and they hate pigs.
And they were just grilled for an hour.
Indeed, Charlie agrees, though she also hates rats and pigs and indeed snakes.
In fact, the Chinese zodiac in general isn't great for her.
It's not great, no. Irene tells her that Gabriel came over the other night, and Charlie knows that they're telling the truth when they say to her that they told him he was forgiven.
Mm-hmm. Also, she's drinking a beer here. I was going to put that in the
product placement,
but it's not. It's fictional.
Okay.
Bailin beer.
There you go. Chinese beer.
Don't know.
To go with the zodiac, maybe.
Yeah, but it's Baylin. Don't think it's.
Okay.
They're not amused with her nervous wisecracks, and Charlie says they should just have told her who Ben was. And Irene responds by pointing out that how they felt when he came over to their house and admitted to betraying them. So she asks what happened, and they tell a technical truth by stating that they told him that they forgave him. So they did say that.
She knows that's true.
Yeah.
She's quite relieved at this.
And at this point, we get the closest we have seen to a one more thing.
Yes, she's got one additional question. Joyce and Irene, she wants to know, can they justify their decision to kill these children?
Irene is happy to admit that they were plotting this and claims that they were the elite offspring of the reigning fascists, which...
She calls them the next generation of war criminals, and Charlie knows that that's not a lie.
Well, she's taken aback by this brazen defence of their actions and asks them to clarify that they intended killing kids with bombs. They do, and we get a flashback of them in this room, which previously we'd only saw them packing flowers.
Yep, they're now putting nails in.
Charlie's obviously not happy with this, and they tell her that she now sounds like Betty.
Yes, but she responds that they sound less like Hoffman and more like Manson.
Yeah, we'll get to the
references.
Yeah, references later on. Obviously the Manson ones.
There's obviously echoes here of the Quantum Leap episode with the frat boy.
Yes. She then asks outright if they killed Ben. And assuming that she's wearing a wire, Irene shouts at Agent F-Face.
Charlie tells her to stop talking to my tits and says that she's realised that they're the assholes.
Yeah, she thought they were super cool and we're the ones that were out to hold these assholes accountable, but now she thinks that the roles have been reversed.
She leaves, and similar to what we saw earlier on with Ben/Gabriel, Joyce and Irene agree that she has to die.
Yeah, and this is a bit where I really liked, as I said earlier, how I assumed that Charlie would in some way find it justifiable to let them off.
Yeah.
But that's been flipped and they're going to have to be punished.
In the common area, the Fletchers are arguing over whether the guy on TV is a Skarsgård, only to be told that everyone is a Skarsgård.
Yeah. They're initially unhappy with Charlie's interruption, but they perk up when they realise that she wants some information or some help from
She's on topic, yeah.
Yeah.
They come up with some poisons that would be undetectable and might trigger a heart attack, and one of them is sodium nitrate, which you mentioned earlier on.
Which is apparently impossible to discover, or near impossible to discover in an autopsy.
And is also a common gardening ingredient.
Yes. Outside, we see the gardener admit that he gave a lot of sodium nitrate to Joyce recently.
He gave her a week's worth on Monday and a further week's worth on Wednesday, and tells Charlie that she shouldn't be shooting it up. It'll mess her up.
Back in the hub, Charlie calls fake nephew and asks him if he's able to keep her name out of things if she gives some information on Ben's death.
This is almost a pure comedy scene, despite the fact it's quite a serious topic. He's got her on speakerphone while he's taking another protected witness called Gino the Bull.
Yeah. Okay, but at first he says, of course I can, it's literally my job not to divulge this information, but we see that there's someone there.
Yeah. At this point, Clark confirms the time of death recorded for Ben was 2:23, which Charlie notes was also the time of the orangutan show, because that's the time that Melanie tapped out.
We should say as well that Gino is not happy at this lack of discretion, because he's obviously just flipped.
Yes, he doesn't want his own secrets shared, Charlie wonders whether Joyce and Irene might have faked the time of death, and at this point Billy walks past, so she gets off the phone to speak to him.
Yeah, she asks to see the data from Ben's cuff, and after initially refusing, he is easily persuaded by her charm.
Not a challenge at all.
He shows her the graph that highlights the heart attack at 2:23 and also tells her that it would not be possible to change the data.
However, there's another shift in the data.
Yeah, at 11:10, there is a change in the heart speed, and this looks to her that he might have switched hearts.
Well, yeah, it's consistently at one rate up to a point, and then it suddenly switches, and then it's consistently at another rate.
And she remembers that this was around the time Irene was supposedly in the toilet.
Yes, she then gets back on the phone to Agent Clark with her theory about swapping the cuffs and then faking the spike, but he says they would had to have simulated an actual heart attack.
Yeah. Also like that when she sums it up, she sort of misuses the mafia language with bing, bang, boom.
And he gets corrected by Gino. However, Clark's not impressed. He needs something hard and firm to ride this one, which is pleasing to Pervy Pete, who walks past just at that moment.
Clark reminds her that the cuff showed a real heart attack and doesn't know how this could have been faked.
Yes. Charlie hangs up to talk to Pete.
I think this is my favourite scene in the episode. Yeah, she asks him about sexual zapping and with a...
The hilarious thing about this is that they weren't doing sexual zapping, so it's completely irrelevant to what actually happened. He says for a bit of electroplay, you just need a taser and an open mind.
Which causes her to feel a bit icky.
I think so.
And so, with this new information at hand, she decides to call Betty, where things take a dramatic turn.
Hello? Betty. It's your old friend Charlie.
Oh, what do you want?
Oh, listen, I think you might have been right about Joyce and Irene.
I told you.
Felons and junkies.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I need to know what you saw at the zoo. You mentioned something about sexual zapping.
Well, yes.
I was buying a hat like a normal person when I saw Joyce and Irene looking extra suspicious. They were in the hothouse, pleasuring each other with some kind of electro dildo. And the worst of it is, I missed the monkey show,
Which was the whole reason that I organized the trip in the first place.
Betty, that's it. That's it. I think we got him.
I'm glad somebody's finally listening. Like I told Irene this morning,
The zoo is no place to practice your twisted, masochistic fetishes.
and the FBI will hear about it.
Wait, Betty, you told Irene all this?
Just an hour ago. Oh, hold on just a minute, Charlie. My Instapot is making funny noises. Hold on.
Pressure cooker. No, Betty, you gotta get out of there.
Betty, evacuate.
The black humour this week has been tremendous.
That was very black indeed. Of course, that was the pressure cooker exploding and killing Betty, who we see zipped into a body bag.
The killers enter their home laughing, but think that maybe they're pushing their luck and it's time to move on.
Yes, I think we talk about maybe going to Bolivia.
Yeah, but they realise it's not.
Well, before they get to the end of the conversation, they notice that Charlie's sitting on their sofa waiting.
Columbo's done that a few times as well.
Has he?
Been, sitting there waiting for someone to return.
How did he get in?
On a couple of occasions he was given a key.
Oh, okay.
And I think, one time in Suitable for framing, the killer offered him the key. Look, if you don't believe me, go and look around my house, not thinking that Columbo would take it. And then he turned around and he says, well, actually, I would save a bit of time. Cheers.
Anyway, Charlie explains to them a flaw in their plan.
What's that?
The cuff ought to have registered the defibrillator shocks that were applied to Ben after he had his heart attack, but there's no record of it on the system.
Oh, also, Charlie sparked up a cigar here as well.
Yeah.
And cracked her knuckles.
She tells them that they deserved to go to prison when they were younger, and they deserve to go to prison now.
And foolishly tells them that they will be going back as soon as she tells her FBI buddy.
This is strangely explicit. Irene says, you haven't told him yet, and Charlie kind of suggests that she hasn't.
I've got an issue about how this ends, but we'll get to that.
I mean, Charlie does have form for not telling the authorities before confronting a suspect.
Very dangerous.
We know that she's talked to the FBI guy here.
So we know that they've got no qualms about killing anyone, kids or whatever, and they've recently killed 2 people.
Yep.
So you really are playing with fire.
And that's exposed as Joyce smacks Charlie in the head with a bedpan.
I mean, that could have killed her outright.
Could have done. Irene then leaps at her from the wheelchair and a fight ensues. And on a couple of occasions, it does seem that Charlie's getting the upper hand.
The fight was brilliant. It went on quite a bit as well.
A knitting needle in the leg at one point. And
she screams in pain, but the neighbours assume this is her rage therapy.
Yes,
or their rage
therapy. Good reference back to that. Joyce fetches the poison, but before she can inject Charlie, Charlie's able to reach the taser and turn on them.
No, before that, she talcs her.
Yes.
Which is a little nod back to last week where talc is the opposite of metal.
Yes, that's true. And I think Irene says, "You talked me."
Yes.
Which I quite enjoyed as a line.
And then she gets kicked in the head.
Yep.
It's a brutal...
It's a big fight, yeah. Charlie, however, uses this taser to tase herself instead of Joyce or Irene.
Yeah, to the amazement of the pair of them, they're led to believe that they've broken her. She's taking
Yeah. So they go to inject her with the poison, but she's not unconscious.
Yeah, she managed to grab their arm, and just then the medics burst in along with Clark and other agents. I don't get this. So she was obviously wearing...
We see at this point, she's wearing this heart cuff thing.
So I don't understand. What's her... Why have they waited so long? Surely her plan wasn't all along to give herself a heart attack as a sign for them to burst in.
It seems like it was.
That's crazy, because she can't have been guaranteed to get the taser. She just picked it up during the fight.
Yeah.
She should either have been wearing a microphone so they can hear what's going on, or they're just listening at the door ready to burst in. I don't understand how...
I'd like it to be that they were meant to come in earlier, but he's so incompetent that they just made a mess of it.
Again, that could have been the case, but she should have said that at the end then. Hey, what happened?
Yeah, they could have shown it, yeah.
And it's sorry,
Yeah.
But I don't really understand what her thinking was here. Like, how did she see this playing out?
I don't understand the plan. I'm not clear. I probably need to see it a couple more times to figure out exactly what was meant to happen here.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Joyce calls Charlie a cop on her way out. But also, we saw earlier that Agent Clark had called Betty a cop.
Yes.
In one of the previous scenes, so it was quite a good sort of circular reference.
Outside, we see the murderous pair in the back of a cop car while Charlie is praised for having great instincts by Clark, who suggests that she might join the FBI.
This reminded me of, not Columbo necessarily, but an old-time show, sort of after the event, the sort of wrap-up scene. You got a lot in Star Trek.
Yes.
As well. Where Clark's like, you've got great instincts, you should join the FBI if you're ever in trouble.
Of course, but also Columbo himself has been a few times, like with Brimmer, for different motives, said, why don't you come and work for my private agency?
Yeah.
So a couple of things here. I've taken a note straight away. He must return in the final episode. She's got an FBI contact here. But my question is this. Obviously on friendly terms, we know that he trusts her, respects her. Why does she not open up at this point about Frost and Cliff?
Well, she maybe doesn't think he can help her.
What do you mean?
What's he going to do?
You can explain everything that's happened.
But
she knows.
No proof of any crimes.
I think rather than being on the run, if you've got a friendly ear of someone who's going to arrest you straight away, say, listen, I'm on the run here. Here's what happened. I sent you this email.
She's just maybe not ready to do that. She does, however, bring up the topic of Casimir Kane.
Yeah, she says, did you get that thing I sent to FBI?
How's she meant to know?
Exactly. Not everyone's copied it in the hello email.
He's not even sure that FBI at fbi.gov is an email address that gets collected.
But he does remind her that she has his number.
Yeah. He kind of leaves a bit awkwardly at this point, and Charlie sets off in her golf cart.
Well, she turns the key only to detect that something is not quite right and so makes a leap just before it explodes.
We see Joyce and Irene looking back at her through the rear window of the police car as they're driven off, and she flips them off as they go.
Yes, she turns her peace sign into the middle finger as Hold On by the Ngozi family plays us out.
Yeah. So they must have set up that explosion before they went back to the house.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But they didn't know Charlie was going to be at the house.
Or use the golf pipe.
Or maybe she does. Maybe she just drives it around.
We've not seen that.
No.
If that's the case, we need to see her a few times, that being her mode of transport.
Don't ask too many questions.
No, never. That's what we do. We ask questions.
Yeah, well, I've got some questions. So do you think Gabriel got what he deserved?
No.
Do you think Joyce and Irene got what they deserved?
Yeah.
Is Charlie a snake?
No.
Or a rat?
No. Trivia?
Yeah.
Originally aired, it's not the same as last week. I thought it would be like 4 and 4, but it's not. This is the 2nd of February 2023.
Yeah, it was 1 week after that.
Ah, right. Okay. Directed this time by someone called Lucky McKee. That's a good name.
Yeah, it sounds like a cat's name.
Born the 1st of November 1975. He's a director and producer as well as a writer. His work includes Tales of Halloween, All Cheerleaders Die, Blue Like You, First Date, and The Woman. Apparently aged 12, he made his own version of A Nightmare on Elm Street with his friend.
Sounds creative.
Along with Wyatt Kane, this episode was written by Charlie Peppers, also a good name, I think.
Yeah.
He, as well as being a writer, is a director and a production designer. You may have seen his work in Broken Silence, Intervention, or The Blind Truth. His influences include Spike Lee, James Baldwin, and John Hughes. And at age 11, he wrote 15 episodes of a TV show. I'm assuming it wasn't produced, it was just for his own amusement, or his family's amusement. But
it's not a TV show then, is it?
Well, yeah, you've written a TV show, it might not have been picked up.
Okay.
Have you written a show for TV?
Yeah, well, I'll accept that explanation.
Okay. To the cast. Some big stars this week.
1 or 2.
We've got Judith Light, who played Irene Smothers. Born on the 9th of February 1949. Primarily known for Who's the Boss, as well as Julia, American Crime Story, Tick Tick Boom, Manhunt, Law and Order, One Life to Live, Transparent, and I actually only know her from... I'm well aware of like Who's the Boss, but I never watched it. But I remember watching the 90s Phenom.
Okay.
About a tennis prodigy. She was the mother of this child.
Okay.
I think William Devane played the coach, like a... What was the famous coach? Nick
Bollettieri.
Yeah, him. I think he's that sort of vibe about him. She's married to actor Robert Desiderio and has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. She's been nominated for 5 Primetime Emmys, including this very episode.
Not surprised.
No, she was very good. S. Epatha Merkerson played Joyce. Now, there's another character that we'll get to in a second, but we don't really get that in this country, having someone with an initial first. The first person I heard of in America was from in Fletch when I watched that as a kid, and they talked about obviously G. Gordon Liddy and the whole Watergate scandal, but yeah, G. Gordon Liddy, and I always remember at the time thinking, why is someone called G? It's a weird name.
F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. But it's not I don't know anyone in the UK who does that.
Was Oppenheimer not something along those lines as well? Yeah. I think having just seen that recently.
Right. Anyway, S. Epitha was born on the 28th of November 1952 and has starred in Law and Order, Chicago Med, Jacob's Ladder, Lincoln, and Pee-wee's Playhouse, obviously, alongside Natasha Lyonne. She's a Primetime Emmy winner for Lackawanna Blues and has had several Tony nominations. Her character in Law and Order is the most prolific female character in the history of US primetime television. And I also think as well, was it in Chicago Med or something else, that her character on that is the most prolific African-American character, both male or female.
Okay.
In terms of number of episodes or the length of time. Talking about initials for first names, we've got K, not K-A-Y, just the letter K. Kay Callan, who played racist Betty.
That's a familiar name.
1936, 9th of January was her birth date. Probably most famous for playing Clark Kent's mother in The New Adventures of Superman, Dean Cain one. Also, Knives Out. She played the old woman in that.
Yes.
Veep, Meet the Browns, Dallas, Joe's World, and another racist character, Lenore Mackenzie, and Quantum Leap, the Americanization of Machiko, which we have discussed in great detail.
On The Leap Home, yes.
Yeah, if you like Quantum Leap.
Yeah, the podcast The Leap Home is at theleaphome.com.
Yeah, we've done the first 3 seasons so far. We took a break for this very show. Maybe the biggest star, certainly of recent years, this episode is Simon Helberg, who played Clark.
Okay.
Luca Clark, I think his full title was. He was born on the 9th of December 1980, and he played the fabulous Howard Wolowitz in The Big Bang Theory. I think he was my favourite character in the show.
I've not watched it.
Really? Yeah. I really enjoyed it at the time. I thought it was fantastic, and he was brilliant, amazingly funny. He's also been in Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, Joey, Arrested Development, Mad TV, and Derek and Simon. He's married with 2 kids to actress Jocelyn Town.
Okay.
And finally, we've got the victim, Ben, played by Reed Birney. He was born on the 11th of September 1954. You may have seen him in Star Trek, Strange New Worlds, Titans, Home Before Dark, 1865, House of Cards, The Blacklist, What's Your Emergency, or Law and Order. He's married to, now this is, for me, I like this, he's married to Constance Schulman, who's a big star in Orange is the New Black, but I know her as playing Cindy May in Fletch Lives.
Orange is the New Black, obviously a connection to Natasha Lyonne and our victim from episode 1.
Of course. He's the father of actors Ephraim and Gus Birney. Gus is actually female. All I know Gus is Angus.
Yeah, it must be short for something else.
Yeah.
Augusta.
Perhaps. Do you have any trivia for us this week?
Nothing particular. I've got a wee bit about the episode title.
Go for it.
Time of the Monkey. I couldn't find anything external, but it was obviously literally referring to the time of the killing being the time that the monkey shows on. However, as we've said, orangutans are technically not monkeys, they're great apes.
There you go.
People who did crimes this week, there's a few. So Joyce and Irene killed Gabriel and Betty, tried to kill Charlie a couple of times.
Yeah.
Arguably, it was potentially a crime when the police went in shooting at people in the warehouse. Joyce was growing weed.
Maybe a crime.
They just depend. And also the gardener receiving it.
Yeah.
Depends what state they're in,
Sure.
what the laws are. I think Billy committed a HIPAA violation. I'm not sure that's technically a crime. Agent Clark revealing classified information to Charlie, potentially a crime. And obviously the making of the bombs.
Bomb making is normally a crime.
Usually. Depends who you're blowing up.
Okay. Right, I have some trivia. Will we rattle through it? Because this is a long one already.
It's been a bit lengthy. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Crack on.
So I mentioned Jackie Shane at the top of the show. Now, the names of the characters. So we had Irene Smothers. The Smothers brothers were folk musicians and comedians, and they had their own variety comedy show. Big show, big name in the States. But they're quite controversial, especially during the Vietnam era, as they were, I think, quite left-winger, anti-establishment, and critical of the sort of mainstream politics and agenda, especially with their stance on racism, Nixon and Vietnam itself, and that led them to being cancelled.
Okay.
Joyce Carter, I assume, was referencing the former president who pardoned Vietnam draft evaders in Proclamation 4483, unless you can think of another Carter who might be relevant. An Incredible Sex Machine.
Agent Carter from Captain America.
Linda Carter.
There's a few.
Ali Carter. We've always got a snooker reference in there.
Let's move on.
Okay. Cocoon, obviously, an 80s movie centred around feisty old folk living in a assisted accommodation. There was a talk, obviously, of Hoffman and Manson. Manson, we don't need to talk about, Charlie Manson, but Abby Hoffman might not be as well known, but he was a political and social activist who co-founded the Youth International Party.
Well, we talked about him in Quantum Leap, didn't we?
Oh, did we?
He was the inspiration for the political leader and the little gang that was forming in that episode.
There you go. He died by suicide in 1989. And finally, we had, was it Gino the Bull in this?
Yeah.
Okay, he's clearly a nod to Sammy the Bull Gravano. He was a mobster and hitman for the Gambino family, and at the time he was certainly the highest level member of the mafia to flip and turn state's evidence. He's now a YouTuber.
Okay. What are the chances?
Yeah, I've watched quite a bit of his stuff. I'm fascinated by all that. I mean, it's not inspirational or aspirational or anything like that, but it's fascinating.
Okay.
Before we head, the motive, I would say revenge, plain and simple.
Yeah, they were betrayed, yeah.
Clues. Clark lying about being the nephew, and Ben truthfully stating that he had no one. Knowing that Ben had his window left open, therefore there was the means for the murder. The BS about shitting, lying about monkey dander, discovering that Ben was in the witness protection program for an incident that happened decades ago. The photo of Gabrielle, Betty talking or telling of the sexual zapping, and the time of death being a coincidence, or the same time as Melanie, the monkey, the ape, the gorilla, the chimp, the orangutan.
Also the time that the heart rate changed on the wristband being the time that Irene was in the toilet.
Yeah, and also the heart rate changing.
Yes.
Okay.
And the lack of the defibrillator.
Yes,
data.
There you go. The gotcha, well, they were caught obviously trying to kill Charlie, so that's pretty strong, but I'm not sure there's any real evidence that they killed Ben.
No. They had the opportunity and the motive.
Yeah.
But you can't prove that they did. I don't
think so, no. And finally, we have this week's product placement, only 3. We saw the Samsung TV that the Fletchers were watching.
Okay.
Instant Pot, I think they mentioned that, and I think that's a brand for the pressure cooker, and obviously Etsy.
For the t-shirt.
Yeah.
Okay. Next week's episode is called Exit Stage Death, where we will find Charlie entangled in a dramatic performance at a local theatre.
Okay, until then,
cheerio.
Bye-bye.